Some time ago I made a video on how to get radiators, cold radiators working, and one of the things I said was bleed the radiator. And then of course we got a comment in afterwards saying that somebody had tried just what I said and now their heating wasn't working. And I said to them, that's because you've got to repressurize your boiler. Didn't cover that. It was covering radiators, not boilers. But they said, how do I do that? So this is how you do it. Now this gauge is the pressure gauge. This pressure gauge could be anywhere on your system if you've got a system like this, or it more likely if you've got a combi boiler or something like that will be in the boiler itself on the front. So look for your pressure gauge, and very often there's a red needle on it which shows you your optimum setting. On this one there's a green zone. Most of them there's a green zone. So what we're saying is anywhere within that green zone is okay. They're giving that green zone as anywhere up to 3, but actually the pressure relief setting on this is just about 3. So if you go up more than 3, the pressure relief valve, which is round the back here and will also be inside the combi boiler, will let that excess pressure off. It'll go to outside. So that stops you over pressuring it. But what you need to do is you need to leave enough room in the system for that little bit of pressure expansion. Now I'll just cover this at the same time while I'm talking about it. This is the expansion vessel. Now as the water heats up, it needs to expand, and in the old days it would expand up into the feed and expansion tank in the loft. That extra capacity would rise up in the tank. But now we have pressurized systems. For all kinds of reasons, pressurized systems are better, and instead of having that tank in the loft, we have a vessel here which has basically got a membrane, a very thick rubber membrane down the middle of it, and on this side of it would be air or nitrogen or whatever, but it's got a little pump at the top to pump it up. But I'll do that as a separate video. If you find that your boiler is constantly losing pressure and you're having to top it up every couple of weeks or so, it's very likely to be that the expansion vessel has lost its charge and that you need to charge that up. Now that can be inside the boiler, so it can be a little bit more difficult to do, but as I say, we'll cover that in another video. What I want to show you here is that we have what they call a filling loop. Now again, these can be inside the boiler. They're very often not connected. Very often what you've got is a dangling hose which is just sitting there, because the water regulations say that you shouldn't have this permanently connected for various reasons. One is that you could get a contamination of the water supply. The other is that if one of these valves is letting by, it's just constantly charging the system, so you don't want that. But in this case it's connected, so happy days, I'll leave it connected. So what we have here is isolating valves. Now they're in their closed position there when the slot is across the pipe, if you like. So we just turn them very gently into the open position. So that one's now open, that'll let water through. There's also another one up here, or there should be, but in actual fact that is not the valve, that is the check valve that's there to stop the water going back into the main. So there's the other valve up there. So we're looking for 2 slots basically, or 2 levers. So if I turn that one, watch what happens when I turn that one. You'll hear a gush of water on the gauge. You'll start to see the needle move. I'm putting water into this system, but it's got a lot of air in it because it's been drained and I've got all the valves closed off. So what I should see is this needle rise to put some pressure in the system. And I'm not going to put a lot in now because I want to go and check my connections upstairs. So I've put about 1/4 of a bar in there, and that needle is steady, which is a good sign because it means I haven't left anything open upstairs. There's nothing dramatic leaking there. If that needle was now dropping down there, I'd be running upstairs to check my connections. But I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to go upstairs and check my connections, and if everything's nice, if there's no hissing sound or anything like that, then I'll continue to put more water into the system just by turning this valve, and then we'll see this needle go up. Now when I've done that, when I've put in about 2 bar, I will then go around and vent all the radiators in the system, and when I vent them, that needle will then drop. Now if it drops below 1 bar, the boiler's normally cut out because they've got an automatic pressure sensor in them that cuts them out. So if your boiler suddenly stops working, always check this pressure gauge first. If the pressure gauge is down there, then you need to get it up to above 1 bar. Anywhere between 1 and 2 bar is usually good, and it will expand very, very slightly. When it heats up, you get a slightly higher reading as it goes into the pressure vessel. So that's all there is to it. Just take it gently when you do it, and because there's so many variations on boilers, different boilers, you should check the instructions on your boiler to see where that is done, because if you can do it yourself, then you can save a lot of trouble. I'll just reiterate that if you're having to do this every couple of weeks or even every month or so, you need to get the system checked out, because the chances are that there's something amiss, and you don't want to keep putting fresh water into the system, because if you do that, the system will rust away. All your radiators will rust away, your boiler will scale up, so it's not a great idea. When that's full up, you should get months out of that before there's any need to top it up at all. So that's an indication. If it's a good system, if everything's okay, then it will hold its pressure. So I'm Roger Bisbee. I hope you found that useful, and don't forget, come back to Skill Builder, because we've got lots more on Skill Builder to do with maintaining a central heating system and all that plumbing in your house and everything else really. Anything to do with building, we're on it.